Okay, thanks. So our next presenter is Professor Gediminas Prazaits from the Vytautas Magnus University Agricultural Academy from Kaunas, Lithuania. Those who attended the SILVA network meeting conference in Dublin may remember the presentation of our Lithuanian colleagues, which revealed how the survival of forestry higher education there got endangered due to the drastic decrease in number of student applications. So we hope to hear from them about a favorable turn of events in this year. Please, Professor, take over.
Thank you. I could extend the story about drastic changes in our university and faculty, but I want to talk today about communication in modern world. So I'm personally a forester who works many in conservation fields. Also, one of co-authors is Jolanta Stankevičiūtė. She is forest pedagogics, and we have also Vitas Marozas. He's co-author, he is dean, so he is responsible for everything what's happening and what not happening in our faculty. So yes, we have lots of reforms, and it's looks like, you know, a process that never ending. We had reform admission that secondary school graduator can decide what policy, education policy should state have. We have structural reform. We became part of another university. And the last reform is state forest, that our independent, about 40 forest enterprises, we are joined to one structure. And this year we maybe ended, maybe not, with forest district joining and reform that touch very directly people who work. So it's what I want to say, that in current nowadays, everything that is not strongly argued is put under question mark, and every 4 years we have election of politicians, and the thing that was, you know, or already argued and not agreed, they can become again on the, you know, under discussion. So the strong communication is very important for us, and strong arguments and relations. So in our faculty, we have 3 fields, 3 main directions of communication. So it's science and education, forestry sector, and society, and I want to talk about it. Actually, our faculty is very diverse in competence, and I believe most or all faculties have specialists on forest management, forest products, and on the other hand, has specialists on conservation. So in this small ecosystem and diverse ecosystem, we could discuss various issues and give very competent answers to the society. So we should use that. We should use that. And first, I want to talk about education of children. So I agree it's very important, and everybody agrees. And our history of forest pedagogics goes maybe 100 years ago, when foresters, practical foresters, they choose classes that they communicated with and had deep collaboration, and it lasts. So our experience is a bit different. Before several years, state forest enterprise say no, we don't want that. But this year they again come back to this idea, because we see an option to educate young people, and with hope that some of them will become their employees later. So why to work with young people? Why we need children education? It will be lots of answers in many of presentations, so I will not talk. But actually, what we often see, if you will take any textbook, you will see, you know, moose and hare the same size. So which animal which is bigger? And if you will ask a child who never met it or saw in the nature, the answer might be that worm is larger. And you can ask your grandchildren, or when you go with, you know, these 5 or 7 years, meeting with young children, you will see it. And if to look a bit more complicated, so when children goes from, laptops, computers, software world somewhere to forest, what he sees, every beetle is attacking him, flies, mosquitoes, ticks, yes, from flies, he needs maybe tens of hours to adopt and say, it's okay for me. Our bachelor students still hate mosquitoes and sometimes they don't want to go outside. And for ticks, it's even more complicated. Somebody must become postgraduate student, not desperately to look at these creatures and know how to avoid them. So it's happening not good. And what children get from their parents, from their surroundings, if you will look, actually trees surround houses. It's not good. You need to take leaves every autumn. Yeah. So my neighbors actually told that we must cut all trees around, and I told no, it's park. Let's leave it. It has many services, but she don't understand that. So it's just happening. I don't know how it's in your country, but in my society that I am from, and for example, our national bird is white stork, but people don't like the nest on the roofs because they, polluting everywhere. And we have this bird flu that also make people afraid of birds. And I know somebody, as I'm teaching bird biology, that somebody had destroyed nest boxes around his house just because of this idea of nest flu. So, and childhood experience is very important for all future for personal development. Yes, so we are doing lots with children, actually lots of activities, lots of projects. We are happy that our university has supports that. Also, Kaunas municipality gives money for communicating with people. State Forest Enterprise, actually, luckily they also have new initiative, and we hope that we will collaborate with them, and they strongly care about forest pedagogics, and we hope that we will develop our skills and forester skills on that. So our last initiative last year was to plant oak forests in our nursery. We collected seeds from monument oaks, growth trees, and announced that every gymnasium that once we can go and plant some oaks. And of course, it was lecture about forester as profession. So 56 gymnasiums joined to this initiative. We also have national contests for more than 10 years, and it's ending up in parliament with high hats of parliament members attending it, and so I think it's a good event. So if to speak about expertise in the forest sector, actually where we are strong, our professors are working with lots of organizations, with governmental, non-governmental, conservation, foresters, hunters. So what we have expertise in many areas and long-term relationships. And I think it's very important that we were personal relations, and very often, these common people that are not competent to understand arguments, they are trusting or not trusting in people. So it's very important that these long-term relations was in society, and we could, find these hotspots that we need to, to find dialogue or find, win-win situations and work on that. So it's very important for forest faculties to have a reputation, good reputation, at least on forest, yes, because for many decades, forest faculties had strong reputation on forest, and everybody in the village or in town, if some questions appeared about forest, they told, okay, let's go to forester and ask. But now it's changed. And there are lots of organizations, lots of people who understand about forest, and we should recognize that we are not only one authority. So we need more communicate, and we need understand others and to find win-win situation. And communication between forest and conservation sector is very often challenge. And I'm sure this sustainable development scheme where sustainable development in the center between economy and environment. In our Lithuanians are known as last Paganians in Europe, so we in some historical parks, open sky parks, you can see like Pagan universe model made from stones, yes. And sometimes I was telling this, as I will tell you now, sometimes I feel like, ecologists goes from another side, foresters on this side, and they don't want to go in on this big stone and talk between, but they just throwing stones to each other and fighting. So where this will go? I think it's no have future for it. And who will be winner? How do you think? Foresters or environmentalists? So if we will think that it's like contradiction because society needs more forest products and forest conservation is also, has rising ambitions. So it's like contradiction between them. So if we will look at social aspects, that should be like perpendicular vector, so it's independent. Yes, social needs of society must be like independent. And what's happened actually? Where social aspects go now? If we will look, or analyze, we must recognize that many of social aspects in our society goes with forest conservation, not with forest products or not with tourism or another, issues that are not associated with product or conservation. So social aspects are very important, and if it goes with forest conservation, to win just, having wall and not doing anything else for foresters, I think it's impossible. So we need to make efforts. We need to have strong communication, good communication. As we are experts, we know lots about forests, and we can use these all arguments. So why it happened? Actually, the distance between people and forest is getting larger and larger, because people who live in towns, what they see forest as a romantic place where they can go and spend some time, but they don't need products from forest. As we know, if we will not cut forest in Lithuania or Hungary or Austria or somewhere else, we can take them from somewhere else. Yes, I know that it's not right, because cutting volume will not decrease because of that, globally. But they just understand, and the market is global, and why to cut here if we can import products? So what main problems actually, and communication problems in last years I meet, actually it's one thing is mass shift. We are faced with mass shift in understanding in species and ecosystem conservation, and there are various tools that ecologist is applying or starting to apply. But for example, I'm speaking what's happening in Lithuania. I'm not speaking about your country. So you might have different situations. So, for example, this deparking of trees, that picture I made in Finland, in Lithuania was, made very, drastic, terrible. That you're killing trees. It's not humanistic. So, or for example, this last picture before, I think, a report from Denmark, it was on our Facebook account, it was given, I think, an example, as as wasting of money, damage because of some ecologists want to damage trees, so without any trying to understand why they're doing that. So I think here we need, try to understand each other much better than up to now, and also try to find situation win-win. And one more actually thing is very well actually discussed in both societies about processes, natural processes in a forest, and I can speak about, deadwood management. Here is a picture from Beloveža. I've been before several years, and when I walked in the forest, the needle there was like that everywhere. So the forest was lost, and here is Czech Republic National Park, you might know. I've been with maybe before half of year. So for foresters, it look like, loss of forest, complete tragedy, and like here, somebody told me it's like Mars. Yes, but actually, if to speak about Lithuania, we trying to find compromises, and it's really possible to find compromises in a forest that is managed for production. We can, and it's on the same way, for example, natural habitat. It's possible to find ways how to manage forests to protect against, sanitary bark beetles and increase amount of deadwood. That is also important. So I will not go here more because of lack of time. Situation actually in our faculty a bit changed when we started long-term 10 years life EP project, and we were invited in this project as expert partner. And what we started to do is a recommendation of natural habitats management recommendations. After entering EU, we needed to make inventory, establish it, but for many of years it was managed as usual, and after it just stopped. Any management in state in Natura 2000 areas was just stopped. So because of too much of them, we are just cut it. So and here appeared we, who was telling that okay, it's possible to find some management that can mutually coexist, management for some wood production and conservation because of imitation of natural dynamics, and it took 3 years to convince society to agree with that, but it's still not applied in practice. And actually, practical foresters, they say we need them, we need these recommendations, but there are somebody in society, forester society, that telling that still not. So, and what new management we should, and I would like to introduce, so it's prescribed burning. In how many countries is allowed to do in Europe? How do you think? Yes, and actually, for some species, it's very demanding. For foresters, they look as, you are killing the forest. But in fact, it's not like that, yes. But just in Lithuania, for example, it was for decades after Second World War, it was totally prohibited to make fire, even very small fire in the forest, and was punished. So to change minds, it's very difficult. But if we will make, prescribed burning in tens of hectares in Lithuania, so it's also, I would say that it's our success story. Now it's allowed to make prescribed burning, and if we will make nature management experiments with some scientific basis. What is very important actually to make monitoring. If we introducing some new techniques, yes, and tools, it's very important to make evaluation, scientific evaluation, how it's affecting, and do we reach our aims? Actually, lots of nature management projects for conservation are without this monitoring. And I've been in one conference, and if I remember well, so it's like 30 or 50% of all management for species is without any, checking how it's affected. Very often it's just done and just forgotten. And it's not good. And here on the left side, you can see how we managed forests when we were not allowed to make fire and still managing. So we are raking forest with floor to make it suitable for some, species where it needs with freshly damaged forest. And in our with Naturalit project, we have both as alternatives, and we have, I don't know, maybe hundreds of tons of, with cover that we will take from forest, and we don't know where to put it because nobody needs it. So it's like waste. And another thing is also we want to introduce this pasturing in a forest. Of course, it's very specific habitat, but I think I almost used my time, so I will finish with this and come to another idea that we participate. We had National Forest Agreement process. It started from 2021 and still not ended. Actually, it was started when, COVID were very strong, and we had all online meetings. And I believe that this online meeting, communication weakened all the process, because if there are people, in groups that are, don't like each other, we need to put them together and go somewhere, maybe, to sauna or to drink some beer, to make them, to speak informal, to start trusting. Yes, it's really working. And they just, met each maybe twice per month and just saying arguments on the screen, and somebody else is listening. So we didn't make connection, on trust of each other. So it failed finally. And main reason was actually that in EU, I think we almost agreed. So 10% of strictly protected forest and 20% of protected areas in the forest. So somebody didn't agree about that. No matter that forest certification is required 10% of no doing in forest. So it was already met with. So, but now we don't know what will happen, because, leading party, once the process was accepted, finalized, because we need some results to show for, before next elections. Some opposing parties don't want to do that, because they also want to fail, want that it fails. So we still don't know what happens. But I think main result was that people talked long time, talked with each other, and started to understand each other. So what's final notes? So everything might appear under reconsideration, yes, and we should be ready for discussions about every single detail in the society. So communications and relations are very important, and is getting more and more important. So being traditional minded, we must agree that forestry concepts, many of them started from 19th century, yes, and we just advancing them but not changing them. Might not work today, and we must look for society, what's happening. And we should look what society needs and what we're talking about, because forests, many forests is heritage of nature, not only foresters. What's more, I think that the way to success is to become part, not to confront each other, but to become part. If you became part, you can influence process. But if you just confronting and going against that, I don't see that it's a way to success. And what I also see in our society sometimes, that we are not honest with scientific evidences. If somebody tells nonsense, that for our opponent, foresters didn't say that it's nonsense, because it supports their idea. So, but we should base all these things on long-term relationship, and if somebody says nonsense, someone they will realize that was just not right idea. was told. So it will get even worse on that after that. So this is the last slide. For communication, we need people, yes, and good relationships. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. We have still some minutes for questions. I mean, in listening to the files, the presentation, sometimes I had the feeling if I would exchange the English text with Hungarian, I could use it at home, because in some terms we are also drifting in a conflict zone, for example, with nature conservation. And one of our big challenges will be in the near future, in the following weeks here in Hungary, to change the curricula of nature conservation, and a bit again, we have the opportunity to make further adjustments in the curriculum of forestry. And I think what's most important, to fit them to each other. As we still have professors acting here at our university, where we see the conflict between nature conservation and practical forestry aims. And I think it was very important to see you have to act together with these opponents. You have to go to them and try to take part in the process, and not only opposing them. I mean, for us, it seems really reliable. Sanders, please.
So what are you doing in Lithuania in order to... Yeah, I'm waiting for the microphone. Sorry.
So what are you doing in Lithuania in order to get into the dialogue? So what kind of communication activities do you offer?
Actually, in this Naturalit project, that our main experience is, we made meetings and meetings again and discussions, and actually, you know, it's always, if we want to find solution, we must, find out what is essential important for every side. And for example, prescribed burning, if we will talk about prescribed burning, where it is, surplus for ecology is much larger than loss for forests. Yeah, so we should say that, okay, ecologists should agree on that, but we need monitoring, evaluation to have evidences of this how to say, added value. So actually, arguments is important. Also, I feel I'm also a forester, but I feel that we are a bit dogmatic. We learn from manuals from the past, and old professors told us. Sorry about some old professors, maybe not all experienced, let's say. So because I'm also getting older. So we need to think, is it right or not right? And think, now there are many, players in society, and there are many new knowledges and information, and forest science is only one chamber, and there are another chamber. So we should try to, join it, think it, discuss it. Of course, there are many, many people, and, some of them is impossible to discuss. And they're always telling the same story, and we have one in Lithuania. So if you're asking me what to work with these people, so they're telling the same story, and I was not telling the answers to her, as I know that when we will have meetings like this, he again tell that story. So I have strong arguments to have to tell in front of everybody. So, but maybe I think just talk, arguments, evidences, and try to extract what is mostly important, and leave, our feelings somewhere else. Because, there are lots of arguments we are doing all our life, like that, and why we can't do that now. Was like that. So everything is changing, and we actually, faculties from universities, we must detect problems and work with the problems, when they are not became big fire in the society. So we just have resources, have competences, and so maybe I answered to your question.
Communicate, communicate, and communicate.
Scientific evidences is very important.
Okay.
It's a simple question. Why? In general,
We do need this for the online participants,
okay.
please. Yeah.
I think that now, I'm not sure in another country, but in Spain, normally the opinion of the society about the forestry engineering is negative. Okay, it's negative. And my question is why? I think that this is very important forest conservation. Okay? For me, it's fantastic. But for example, I am from Galicia. Galicia is very important about forest production, and the forest is private. Then if the people prefer afforestation with eucalyptus or with Pinus radiata, what is the solution? The people is an enemy of the forest. I think no. Then this is very important forest conservation, but there are a lot of situations in Galicia, in the Scandinavian countries, in another countries, where the forest production is very, very important. I think that Europe, in Europe, is necessary also forest production. It's my opinion. But I think also it's not incompatible with forest conservation. Do you understand my question? For example, in Galicia, now there are stop with new afforestation with eucalyptus. But at the moment it's only a stop. But in the future, I think that the administration, new afforestation are possible, but at the moment it's sufficient. This is the question. Okay. Thank you.
Actually,
my question is, it depends of the particular situation of the different countries.
yes, of course,
Okay.
because in every country we have, very originally different situation.
Okay.
It depends, even one person who is active might change all the situation.
Yeah.
And I agree that in Lithuania also we have now opinion about foresters actually is not good. It's not. It was rather good, but when our government want to make this reform of joining, they can't actually do it because foresters was very strong in good relations with politicians. So what they started bombing via media that foresters are stealing wood and blah 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 blah. It was lots of such messages. And after 3 years, I came to one national park, and we came to cafeteria. We had FSC meeting, national meeting. So they asked, "Who are you, foresters?" "Oh, you are stealing wood." So it long term actually, and if reputation is the thing that the thing that we can very easily to lose and very difficult to get it back. And to use conservation for this, I think if we want to out the situation with eucalyptus, to demonstrate how it's bad for natural habitat in long term, I think it might be good methods to communicate with society. Just
Exactly.
and also I know it, fire problems. That eucalyptus is very hard to say. It's very friendly to fire.
The problem is the communication by the society. In Spain, in the past, the forest engineering, I'm enemy of the forest. I don't understand why. By the image of the forest engineering is terrible. Now, no.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Let's jump to the next presentation. Because our next presenter had to make a really long trip to us. Let me introduce you Mr. Robert Radic. He graduated here at our university as a forestry engineer and moved to different parts of the world, worked in the US, but it wasn't far enough for him, so he moved to the other end, to the Lincoln University in New Zealand. And he works there now as a senior lecturer in the Department of Global Value Chains and Trade. And he made a short summary as an introduction to our university. He will not only visit our faculty, but the Faculty of Food Sciences and then the Faculty of Economics. Let me tell you a few words of this letter. New Zealand is the world's largest exporter of logs, worth $6.4 billion a year, making forestry the third largest branch of the national economy there. The next UFRO All Division 5 World Congress will be held in Australia, so Mr. Radic will be one of the organizers. So therefore, I think we can excitedly wait and see what current affairs he reports to us about with his presentation, Forestry Education, Communication and Forestry's Public Perception in New Zealand.
Thank you. Some of this must go down. Unfortunately, I didn't grow so tall. I'm really enjoying myself here because this is my alma mater, as Balint mentioned, and it's a great opportunity. I'm looking for cooperation. This is why I'm here, and it's just happened that the conference topic is forestry communication, so I try to adjust my presentation to fit. So it's great to see this new building, and I also loved that the forestry faculty and the Benedek faculty use the synergies for forestry communication well. At my time, it was different. 2 years after I finished the university, I realized I'm lacking of people skill, but I really needed to further climb up on the career ladder. So I married a kindergarten teacher from the Benedek faculty. So let's go. So I plan to introduce New Zealand forestry industry briefly because it's very unique and different compared to Europe, and maybe there will be some learning points during the presentation, but without knowing some basic information about the forestry industry, you could not understand the uniqueness of the situation there. Then I will talk about the forestry education, communication, and the perception of forestry in New Zealand. Let's see, this is New Zealand on the right-hand side on that slide, and the wood supply regions. New Zealand is a little bit larger than the UK, so in the map it seems very tiny, and it's far from everywhere, but it's not so tiny. Yes, our trade partners are pretty far, so transportation is a high cost. Forest covers about 40% of the land. Out of that, 30% of the land covered by native forests. I cannot say it's untouched, but there are no forestry activities in that. All natural landscape is around 50% of the land because it includes tussock what is a tall grass on windy hilltops. It includes geothermal springs, volcanoes, fjords, glaciers, and mountains. So we have a significant part of the country is a natural landscape. Only 8% is used for commercial forest, and this provides us this great, or not so great results to export a lot of logs. Because the meaning is not just that we are very productive. Radiata pine grows about 1,000 ton by the age 28, so it's growing fast. It's but the problem is that this is the good part. The bad part that the domestic processing industry is struggling. Why is that? It's not the topic of that presentation. I will talk about that forestry supply chains on Thursday, but basically China. Our key export partner is China, and 50% of all production, forestry production, logs and processed is going to export, and out of that 54% is go to China, and the price is very volatile, and the processing industry cannot keep up with that. Just recently we closed the sawmill. Native tree harvest is negligible. It's not forbidden or banned, but it's tiny. More than 95% of the commercial forests are radiata pines. The other 5% are eucalypt, Douglas fir, so other species. Maybe you cannot see the map on that, but it would show you that the larger ring represents a larger volume of wood exported, and the different colors represent different forestry products. But it's not the key path of that presentation. This is the forestry supply chain, and you see that most of the wood is exported, or half of the forestry products and logs are exported, and there is a transformation plan for New Zealand to change onshoring processing and providing more jobs, providing more GDP on the left-hand side. So we need to communicate that and that change, while forestry is in the focus is the focus of policy or politicians, even in the election. Previous Prime Minister promised to plant 1 billion trees, mainly to achieve the carbon neutrality by 2015. And part of that is exotic species like radiata pine, a part of that is native species. And actually native species gets a little bit more subsidies than exotic species. Also, I don't want to talk about the transformation plan, but this is what's happening. We want more processing in New Zealand and less unprocessed wood exported. And this is the secret behind that we are the highest log exporters. Russia, Canada, US produce more wood than New Zealand, but they are smart enough to process that and not selling the logs. Forestry education, I don't know whether it's a great, I know it's not a great slide. It summarizes all the institutes who teaches forestry. The first, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is tertiary education. They educate mainly blue-collar workers, and they will work in the forest. They use very nice simulations, simulating harvesting machinery. Kids can sit on that and try in a simulated area, not in the forest first, because it would be dangerous. The University of Canterbury provides somewhat similar education like University of Sopron for forest engineers. They have an engineering faculty. Lincoln University I worked for, we provide education for a lot of farmers who use lands integrated in an integrated way, or they have forests. In New Zealand, maybe 99% of commercial forests or production forests are owned by private companies or farmers, and from our perspective, below 1,000 hectares, it's a small forest owner, and below 40 hectares, we don't know too much about those. They are not regularly surveyed, whether they replant or what they do. So the size of those are different. A lot of forests were planted in the 1990s due to the high price of logs at that time, and this results in a peak of wood supply from small forest owners. It means below 1,000 hectares. And they are very free to sell their wood. And this causes conflicts as well, because obviously they want the highest spot price. You cannot make a long-term contract. Also, it's not a forestry communication, but Massey University is also in this arena, and it wasn't me in that arena. And now the most challenging part of the presentation, because I have links and I want to open those links and show you how accessible the forestry data in New Zealand, because this transparency add a great layer to communicate forestry. So basically, neither politicians nor media can talk about fantasy here, because the data is from a click from every citizen or who is interested. First, my LinkedIn page, very important. What I try to introduce here, that I regularly share forestry information for my 15,000 followers. Why is that? Maybe it won't work. Oh, it works.
Might give you some help.
Okay. Oh, okay. It's good. No problem. So I need to use this mouse in that side. Okay, very good. So how to go down? This scroll does not work. Oh, it works, just slow. So I wanted to show my recent activities. I hope there is nothing compromising there. I keep those for my other social media, so hopefully on LinkedIn it will be all okay. Posts. Okay. So this is a friend of, he's a friend of mine in the US, and he's about all of his research about packaging, but this is about the food stuff. I'm also about suicide prevention. So there are something what is not about forestry. This is our university. Yeah, supply chain risk outlook. So why I showed that. So now can this disappear? Can I make this disappear? So here you go. So I think the academics are credible, more credible than anybody else from the politicians, from ministries, because they are committed to some kind of communication or agenda. Companies definitely committed to promote their ideas instead of being neutral. So we considered as a neutral source of information, and people tend to like it. So that was one. Maybe I won't open all of that links if it's hard. This is one good source of data. MPI, Ministry of Primary Industries. There are some data here. Oh, I was thinking to ask a question for that from the chatbot, but let it go. Okay. So a lot of information available for everyone at the Ministry of Primary Industries webpage. The other important change recently, that the government re-established the forestry services, Te Uru Rakau. It's called Te Uru Rakau in Maori, and most of the institutes have a Maori name, and this is the first part of their names now. And you see, emission trading system, and this is about the, for instance, there is a dispute over there because people tend to they want more native forests. In New Zealand, for a native forest, it takes 800 years to grow 500 ton per hectare. For radiata pine, it takes 28 years to grow 1,000 ton. So if you look at that from an emission trading perspective, maybe not always the native forest is the best solution. And also we went further because after you cut radiata pine, you will store most of the wood in buildings or in furniture. So it depends on the use how fast you release the carbon. So Teuru Rakau. The other important source of information is the National Exotic Forest Description. Hope it will come up. This is issued by the Forest Owners Association. The civil or NGO work in New Zealand is very significant, and they are also a credible source of information. However, they represent their own stakeholder group as well. For instance, Forest Owners Association, beyond to something is happening. Beyond to release that data. They can all see that. It's good. It's good. So they participate in crisis communication, and recently it became very important since the cyclone Gabrielle caused so-called forestry / overflows. It's a huge burden. All the leftover dead trees and residues went to the yeah, there are some data here. So everything is available for the audience. Let's go back to that. So I won't open all of the others because of the time, but there are more popular magazines, scientific journals, also different regular journal for far foresters, so small forest owners. But let's talk about forestry's perception. Because of this unique background, it would be better to show that by segments. CO2 sequestration, jobs, and economic benefits are well known, and it's welcomed by the urban population because they experience that, they know that, but it's very different in the rural landscape. Why is that? There is a competition for land, and the sheep business, what is the second largest export business in Hungary, in New Zealand, with the beef and sheep together, it's the second largest business or export. Their associations, basically the processing industry, want to keep or increase the sheep business. It's not about farmers, because farmers want to earn the most money on the lowest risk as normal in any area, but these associations keep getting against forestry. I recently reviewed a PricewaterhouseCoopers study for the Ministry of Primary Industry, and they found that 1,000 hectare or by area, forestry provides 3 times more economic benefit than sheep farming. The direct benefit is maybe more for sheep farming, but further up on the supply chain, there are more jobs and economic benefits for forestry. There is another perception thing. Forestry is a leading industry in poor regions. But these regions are not poor because of forestry, but because the forestry, what they can do because of the land quality. The other thing is that most of the large forests owned by foreign companies, and they are not considering local mills or local processing industries' interest, there is no integrated forestry company in New Zealand, like from growing trees to processing and selling paper, for instance. There are a lot of closed medium-sized sawmills because of the poor domestic supply. The other issue, large trucks on roads. We have a poor road network in New Zealand. They reduce the speed of the traffic and also cause accidents. So this is not perceived very well. A lot of clear cuts, large clear cuts, because this is economically the most beneficial. People don't like that. And the two picture is just recent, 1 month ago, and there is a ministerial review of that. All the forestry slash was brought down by the rain and destroyed bridges, destroyed buildings. So again, it's not a good picture of forestry. But in this crisis communications, none of the companies had to stand before the audience, but instead of that, the Forest Owners Association talks. I have not shown SION, the Forest Research Institute, what is largest in Asia. They have about 300 people. I worked for them for 4 years. And they apply the science-based communication, what Cornel mentioned earlier, and it goes very well because high schoolers and mid-schoolers learn a lot about forestry in that way. Thank you for your attention, and I try to answer your questions if you have any.
Thank you. Question over there.
It looks like my presentation is very questionable.
So I'm wondering how this issue of protection is also affecting forestry. The choice of forestry as a discipline and also as a profession. So this is in relation to the discussions that we've had about the media and now the discussion and also the insights municipality as well. So in 2020, I carried out a survey and a group of students were proactively engaged in the forest sector project, which was a collaboration by EFI, IFSA, and TIPRO. And we were asking students which fields of forest people would like to work in. And surprisingly, most of them wanted to work in nature conservation and biodiversity, and all of them from all continents. So this was a global study because the project was global in scope. And all the continents, the students didn't want to work in forest industry because they view it as extractive and destructive. So I think we really have a lot of children abroad to improve the protection. So at the society at large, and also the young people potential students that we want to recruit.
Thank you. We have labor shortage in all areas of forestry, from truck drivers to harvesters via academics and researchers. So New Zealand's doors are open for those who want to work there, and I really want to emphasize that I want to collaborate and want to attract students as a part of an exchange program to be in New Zealand, because we are lacking of talents, and it would be great to acquire some knowledge as well. I also see a great synergy with the University of Sopron and Middle Europe and Europe, because the forestry culture is very young in New Zealand. So we have a lot of things to learn. For instance, SION, the Forestry Research Institute, mainly focuses on radiata pine. But there are other trees. There are other stuff around.
mentioned that there is a great competition for land between forestry and animal breeding.
Sheep farming.
Sheep farming and cattle, if I remember well. And you mentioned also that the economic benefit for forest is larger, so better than for animal breeding. So my question is, because as far as I know, you have agroforestry systems as well, where the trees are together with animals in the same land. And the layer of these systems are quite high, so the land equivalent ratio is quite high, which means that the use of these lands is more efficient than the animal breeding. And my question is, where these agroforestry systems could be put from this aspect, from economic benefits, in between the forest and animal breeding, or it's better, or so what it is.
Okay, so there is no competition between the dairy and beef business and forestry because they use better quality land for the high quality grass, but there is a competition between sheep and wool production, not just lamb and meat, but also wool production and forestry. And there are some nostalgia or knowledge about how to grow, how to breed sheep, how to handle livestock. And a lot of times people just want to do the same thing what they did before, and this is it's hard to change by but the politicians and also our faculty and other universities and other education institutes making efforts to show the real benefits of forests beyond selling logs to China. So there are other benefits, and it's a long process. It's not. Yes, the PricewaterhouseCoopers report said that forestry is 3 times more beneficial for the economy than sheep farming. I believe in that, but maybe others do not. So it's a long process. Yep.
Thank you. Actually, I was prepared to do some nice EX.
Sorry.
On the same line, either the Pricewaterhouse or any of the studies which came out as a result of forestry being more profitable. Is this tangible profit? Is it something that can be easily converted into money, or is it something theoretical that may appear in some environmental accounting, but not necessarily in accounts?
So this study purely focused on economic benefit, even did not consider the emission trading scheme, what came out later than that study, what helps in cash flow for forest owners. This is just the economic benefit for growing the trees, selling the stumpage price, then processing according to the current percentages. So half of them processed by New Zealand. They considered all of these steps and nothing added artificially. So it was pretty convincing how they were. I worked with the input-output models for calculating GDP and economic multipliers, but the Pricewaterhouse experts did an excellent work in that. So it was not artificially inflated or deflated.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I mean, it's quite interesting. We have heard about some proposal between some conflict zone between different land use forms, and I think here in Europe we have a huge system. Most of the EU funded subsidies go into agriculture, And for example, this is a turning point for the use of land for afforestation. Is there is there any land available or not? And I mean, here again, communication has a role, but it takes a long time till it reaches these subsidy systems, for example. In the US or probably in New Zealand, we didn't hear about any subsidy systems like this. But here it interferes with land use, and we see often that agriculturers, that farmers use land for traditional agriculture which is not worth of using it like in that way. I'm a soil scientist. We see that more than 2/3 of forest soils which developed under forests are used for agriculture, which is a bit a nonsense. But still, this is decisive about the land use form. So, but I think we will have enough time in the remaining 2 days of the conference to discuss even this question. So we thank our previous speakers for their presentations, and now we come to the poster session, which will be held in an informal format. That means I ask the speakers to approach their stand and give answers to the questions. 3 of the posters are here in the room presented. The 4th one of Mrs. Kitajbekova is only available online, but we have to emphasize that all the presentations and all the posters are available at SILVA Network's homepage, and also available, of course, for our online participants. For today, we say goodbye to our online participants. Thank you for your contribution being with us. And we hope to see you today in the morning. And some more technical information. After the poster session, it's